Welcome to NTD Newsroom. I'm Don Ma. President Trump laying out a timeline for Operation Epic Fury. That's as the president vows to avenge the deaths of the 4 American service members killed in action. And Israel expands strikes on Beirut. That's after Iran retaliates for the killing of its supreme leader and nearly 50 top officials. The conflict is rapidly escalating across the region. House Speaker Mike Johnson planning for a classified briefing between lawmakers and the Trump administration. The House Speaker showing full support for the president's military operations. The FBI is probing a terror connection after a gunman opened fire in Texas, killing 2 and injuring 14. Authorities say the suspect wore pro-Iranian clothing and had weapons in his car. Middle East tensions are hitting the oil market, prices spiking after Iranian attacks disrupted shipping in the Strait of Hormuz. People in Iran and across the globe celebrating the death of Iran's supreme leader, and in New York City, a rally celebrates the dictator's fall and looks forward to a new future for Iran.
This is NTD Newsroom, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us today. Our top story, President Trump saying U.S. strikes in Iran are likely to last around 4 to 5 weeks. That's at an East Room event where he's awarding the Medal of Honor to 3 U.S. servicemen. We now go live to NTD's Washington correspondent, Mari Otsu, who was just in the East Room ceremony with the president. Mari, good to see you.
Hey, Don, good afternoon. Yeah, that's right. President Trump now saying that they projected 4 to 5 weeks originally for these strikes in Iran. But the president also saying that we do have the capability to go longer than that. And he's saying that at a ceremony in the East Room here, awarding 3 U.S. servicemen, 2 of them posthumously, with the Congressional Medal of Honor. And so the people there present in the audience are especially aware of the cost of war. That says we now have 4 U.S. servicemen killed in Operation Epic Fury. Behind me here is the POW MIA flag still flying beneath the American flag in honor of these lost lives. And the White House, though, is saying that this is not a forever war. President Trump saying that the objectives are very clear and laying them out for us. Take a look.
We also projected 4 weeks to terminate the military leadership, and as you know, that was done in about an hour. Our objectives are clear. First, we're destroying Iran's missile capabilities, and you see that happening on an hourly basis. Second, we're annihilating their Navy. We've knocked out already 10 ships. They're at the bottom of the sea. Third, we're ensuring that the world's #1 sponsor of terror can never obtain a nuclear weapon. And finally, we're ensuring that the Iranian regime cannot continue to arm, fund, and direct terrorist armies outside of their borders.
And Don, the president's also pushing for new leadership in Iran. He's telling ABC that the U.S. had identified some possible candidates for that, but that they were all killed in the original attack in Iran. The president also saying that somebody within the Iranian government reached out to him, although he didn't name that person. That's as President Trump's telling Fox yesterday that 48 Iranian officials have been killed. And as for the death of the Ayatollah, President Trump's telling ABC, quote, "I got him before he got me. They tried twice. Well, I got him first." There he's referencing what the Department of Justice believes was a plot to kill President Trump in 2024. Meanwhile, President Trump and War Secretary Pete Hegseth are honoring the 4 U.S. servicemen who were killed in these attacks. Take a look.
Today, we grieve for the 4 heroic American service members who have been killed in action and send our love and support to their families. In their memory, we continue this mission with ferocious, unyielding resolve to crush the threat this terrorist regime poses to the American people.
A grateful nation honors the 4 Americans we have lost thus far and those injured. The absolute best of America. May we prosecute the remainder of this operation in a manner that honors them. No apologies, no hesitation, epic fury for them and the thousands of Americans before them taken too soon by Iranian radicals.
And meanwhile, Don, the Pentagon is also pushing back against the narrative coming from some of the mainstream media and some lawmakers that this is a forever war. That's as some members of Congress are using that argument to push for a vote on war powers resolution this week that would limit powers on the operation in Iran. Take a look.
President Trump has also been clear about your fate in either direction. To the media outlets and political left screaming endless wars, stop. This is not Iraq. This is not endless. I was there for both. Our generation knows better, and so does this president. He called the last 20 years of nation-building wars dumb, and he's right. This is the opposite. This operation is a clear, devastating, decisive mission. Destroy the missile threat, destroy the Navy, no nukes.
And President Trump and the Pentagon still urging the Iranian people to take advantage of this opportunity and take back their government. Secretary of War Hegseth saying in his presser this morning that this is not a so-called, quote, regime change war, but that the regime did in fact change and that there is this opportunity now for the people of Iran. Back to you, Don.
Okay, Mari, thank you. U.S. Central Command says 3 U.S. fighter jets were shot down by Kuwaiti air defenses in a friendly fire incident. Here are the details.
Online video showed a U.S. warplane falling from the sky over Kuwait. A person can be seen parachuting to the ground. U.S. Central Command said Kuwait's air defenses mistakenly shot down 3 American F-15 fighter jets during active combat missions against Iran on Monday. The U.S. and Israel launched a joint assault on Iran over the weekend with missiles and airstrikes targeting Iran's leaders, commanders, and military installations. Iran launched retaliatory strikes on neighboring Gulf states in response. The U.S. described Monday's incident as an apparent friendly fire episode. CENTCOM said all 6 crew members from the 3 jets ejected from the aircraft safely were recovered and are in stable condition. It said that Kuwait had acknowledged the incident and that an investigation was underway. Kuwait had intercepted hostile drones earlier on the same day. In a separate incident, smoke was seen rising from the vicinity of the U.S. Embassy compound in Kuwait City. Witnesses told Reuters fire trucks and ambulances were in the area. There were no responses to requests for comment on the embassy incident from the U.S. Embassy in Kuwait or from the U.S. State Department.
And a major new front in the operation. Israel today saying it's expanding operations to include the terrorist group Hezbollah in Lebanon. Lebanon's state news agency reports at least 31 people killed and 149 injured in initial strikes. Footage shows hundreds of people crossing the border as the conflict widens. Hezbollah says it launched missiles and drones toward Israel in retaliation for the killing of Iran's supreme leader, Ali Khamenei. Meanwhile, Israel says it's keeping all options open for a possible ground invasion in Lebanon. And Lebanon now says it's banning Hezbollah from any military or security activities. The government is urging the group to hand over its weapons. In a statement today, the Prime Minister condemned the rocket launch claimed by the terror group, calling it a violation of cabinet decisions. The Council of Ministers stressed that the decision of war and peace rests only with the Lebanese state. Meanwhile, the Israeli military says it struck senior Hezbollah figures and command centers in Beirut and Tyre. It says the strikes were in response to rockets fired into Israel and that it's prepared for a multi-front scenario. Lebanon's Prime Minister responds.
To ensure that Lebanon does not get dragged into any conflict in the tense regional circumstances, the cabinet requests the mediator states to achieve a clear and final commitment from the Israeli side to stop all its assaults on all of Lebanese territory.
The Department of State is urging Americans in Lebanon to leave immediately. The embassy says the security situation in Lebanon is volatile and unpredictable. Americans are advised not to travel to Lebanon. Those who remain should prepare emergency plans and be ready to shelter in place if conditions worsen. The embassy says Americans should not rely on the U.S. government for assisted departure or evacuation. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says Israel is targeting tyrants. He was at the site of an Iranian missile strike west of Jerusalem earlier today. Here he is, drawing a contrast between Israel and Iran after yesterday's attack killed 9 people.
This is the 3rd day of the Operation Roaring Lion, the operation the Israeli army and the state of Israel set out to, with our great friends, the United States of America and President Trump, to thwart existential threats to Israel and great threats to America and the entire world. When I stand here in a place that was bombarded by the terrorists in Tehran against innocent civilians, you see the difference. The tyrants of Tehran target civilians. We target the tyrants of Tehran to protect civilians.
Netanyahu added that a nuclear-armed Iran would pose a threat to the entire world. The war in the Middle East continues as the Israeli and U.S. bombing campaign against Iran intensifies. Iran and its allies are targeting locations in Israel and neighboring Gulf states. Tehran has long threatened to expand the conflict into a regional war if attacks continued. Meanwhile, the United Arab Emirates said Iran has launched more than 170 ballistic missiles toward the country since the start of the conflict. The country's defense ministry said it had destroyed 161 of the missiles and intercepted several hundred Iranian drones. The ministry condemned the attacks, calling them a flagrant violation of its national sovereignty and international law. UAE officials said 3 people had been killed while 68 suffered minor injuries. Qatar said its air force had shot down 2 Iranian bombers and intercepted 9 ballistic missiles. And joining us now to discuss the situation further is retired U.S. Navy Captain Armen Kurdian, foreign policy and national security analyst. And we also have Brian Leib, foreign policy analyst and former executive director of Iranian Americans for Liberty. So Trump announcing today the objectives, very clear: destroy Iran's missile capabilities, take out the Navy, eliminate their ability to get a nuclear weapon, and eliminate their ability to sponsor terror outside of its borders. So I'll start with you, Armen. What are your reactions right now to these objectives?
I think they were very clearly articulated, Don. You noticed that he didn't talk specific about regime change, but I can tell you the attacks on the Navy are an effort to prevent their ability to close the Straits of Hormuz from a naval perspective, or mining the Straits, and of course, knocking out missile batteries which are in range of the Straits of Hormuz, which could attack neutral shipping or U.S. shipping or carriers. So I think this is good that he actually did that. You see a little bit of a disconnect between what he's talking about and what Netanyahu's talking about in terms of regime change. So it's going to take a little while for the U.S. to achieve these particular goals. When they are achieved, or when we believe that they're close to being achieved, it'll be interesting to see what happens next.
Okay, so Brian, give us your thoughts right now.
Well, I think what's been happening over the last 48 hours is certainly monumental, and we're going to be talking about this for a long, long time. I do think ultimately the goal here is regime change, both from the Israeli perspective and the U.S. perspective. You see what's happening right now with the strikes that are continuing, that we know now are also going to intensify quite a bit now over the next coming days and weeks. The goal here is not to just get rid of the head of the snake, which you see on the screen right now, and all the other people that have been eliminated, but a lot of the second and third tier levels as well. I really think this is a wholesale kind of take out the trash operation here. And then once that's done, it's going to be up to the Iranian people to chart their own destiny. And I think, that's going to happen. But we've got to make sure that all of the IRGC elements are eliminated before the Iranian people can start doing their thing.
So Armen, in your view, is a regime change essentially a given here, is needed in order to achieve all the objectives that President Trump listed earlier today?
Ultimately, yes, it will be very hard to achieve. I don't think it's going to necessarily be successful unless there are coordinated efforts that are on the ground. If, say, you had Israeli special forces in there, or saboteur teams, or coordination with the Iranian resistance to go in and take over. It will be very, very hard. I know that's what they want to do, but there's been discussion about what that would actually look like, or could it destabilize the entire country and drop it into civil war? But if there is no regime change, then you will see this continue to happen in the future. You will see Iran try to continue to reconstitute its nuclear capability, continue to try to support a lot of the proxies in the Middle East. And if we have another change in foreign policy in 3 years, perhaps a relaxing of Iranian sanctions, they'll get their money back, they'll get their foreign currency reserves back up, and it's going to go right back into Hezbollah and Hamas. And we just can't have that anymore.
Okay, so Brian, how do we have a Iran where the current mechanism is not present when a new regime, new government takes over? How do we do that?
I think you're going to see a lot of that unfold in the next couple days and weeks here as the Israelis and the Americans continue to really just hunt down as many high-level IRGC officials as they possibly can to eliminate them. Of course, I'm sure the CIA and the Mossad are also working their back channels to try and get some of these individuals to flip and leave the country. But listen, the Iranian people are not going to be able to start taking over, like I just said, until a lot of these IRGC elements are removed, because Iran it's a very big country, home to over 80 million people, and the vast majority of them do not sympathize with the regime or support the IRGC in any way, shape, or form. But there are still IRGC elements that are in place right now, the same way that even when you look at the Israel-Gaza situation, there's still tens of thousands of Hamas soldiers that are still alive and kicking and have weapons. And these threats have to be eliminated for there to be peace all throughout the region. So I think that's the main thing to look at here in the next couple days and weeks is how aggressive are the Israelis and us on our side, the Americans, in really hunting down and taking out as many IRGC officials as we possibly can.
All right. Okay. So Armin, I would imagine a number of Americans at home have a lot of questions here. President Trump said today the Iranian regime poses a threat to the American people. Can you just talk to us, in your view, how so? What is the threat?
Ever since they took over back in 1978, Iran has been waging war against the West, whether it's the Beirut bombing, whether it's the embassy bombing, whether it's support of proxies attacks in the Middle East, whether it's delivering of those specialized IEDs, those shape charges that went after American armor in Iraq, or what have you, or their, the IRGC's efforts in Yemen, their support of Hamas and Hezbollah. They are pretty much the world's pariah. So that regime, it's a mentality, it is a fanaticism to go after the United States. It is part of their blood. It is part of who they are. And I'm talking about specifically, again, this leadership, this theocracy, not the vast majority of the Persian people. My mother was born in Iran, and she certainly doesn't sympathize with this regime. So ultimately, the Iranian people are going to be the ones who are going to have to change their government. But to that point, they're not going to be able to do that if the IRGC is still strong enough to resist and stop them from doing so.
So, Brian, similar question to you. What would you say to those Americans who may be wondering, how does this impact my life? Why does it matter?
Well, let me first say that it's my belief, and also the belief of President Trump, that America first does not mean America alone. We cannot be isolationists, and we sometimes have to take the fight directly to the bad actors throughout the world to ensure that fight doesn't come to our doorstep. And that's exactly what President Trump has done now in partnership with Prime Minister Netanyahu in eliminating so many of these key figures inside of the Islamic Republic of Iran. And it's really just a major threat, not just for the region, not just for Israel and for their Gulf partners and Gulf allies there. But I mean, listen, this is a regime that has threatened to blow up the U.S. Capitol building, has tried to assassinate Americans, had assassination attempts trying to assassinate the sitting president of the United States. And oh, by the way, over the last 40 some odd years, as they've been in power, they've been killing Americans and Israelis every chance they can possibly get. I mean, don't forget, during the Iraq War, a lot of those IEDs, they were made by the Iranians. So, they have the blood of hundreds, if not thousands of Americans on their hands. So, what's happening right now, in my opinion, Don, is really long overdue. A lot of presidents have talked about this. A lot of administrations have talked about this, and they just keep kicking the can down the road year after year, decade after decade. And finally, we have a president and in partnership with Prime Minister Netanyahu that really had the guts to do what needed to be done, and truly is a historic moment, I think, for the world right now.
So Armin, Brian says this is long overdue, and Iran is saying it's going to continue to retaliate until the United States and Israel are definitively defeated. I don't know if there are risks there. Can you just explain to us, what does that mean?
Well, basically, it means that if we're shooting at Iran, Iran is going to try and shoot back. I would question some of their tactics and their strategies by going after some of the Middle Eastern states, attacking the UAE and Dubai attacking the airport and other civilian targets. They're just making them angry. They're shooting missiles at Cyprus, at the British, for crying out loud. Spreading out the war to the rest of the Middle East is not going to be successful in that sense. All it's going to be is just going to allow the U.S. to continue to attrite Iran's combat capability, and also now using some of those bases in some of those countries that previously said that we would not be allowed to use, and allow us to use them. And that allows us to bring additional combat power to bear in terms of the Air Force that has tactical aircraft in there, so they don't have to just rely on the B-1s and B-2s flying all the way from the continental United States on those day-and-a-half missions to drop their guided weapons and penetrator bombs in the middle of the country. So Iran is actually not acting in its own best interest in that sense, but they'll keep trying to fight us. They probably will get a few lucky hits, as they have. But overall, as we've seen over the last several years, Iran's ability to affect combat operations against the U.S. and Israel have pretty much been very ineffective.
So, Brian, Lebanon fired rockets at Israel. Is the war widening here?
Well, let me just say before that, my panelist's opinion here is exactly correct. I mean, the Iranians' capability to really combat what the U.S. and Israel is doing is they don't have the same capabilities that we do. I mean, come on, they haven't put a single fighter jet in the sky since this started here in the last 48 hours. We have air superiority through most of Iran right now, and that's going to continue. Most of the missile sites, both the ICBM sites and also the defense missile sites, have been eliminated. So the Iranians really don't have a lot left when it comes to military technology, military wherewithal. They probably do have a couple hundred missiles. Maybe that number's a little closer to 1,000. That's really all they have. They have missiles, and then they also have the IRGC thugs that are on the streets all throughout Iran that can take to the streets and kill their own people, with machine guns. So they don't really have a lot of capabilities to go toe to toe with us, the Americans, or with the Israelis, and we're seeing that unfold right now. With regards to your question about Hezbollah, Hezbollah has been seriously degraded over the last year or so. This was something I think that the Israelis have been really focused on over the last year or so, and post October 7th, is making sure that if this moment ever did come where a strike against Iran were to happen, that Hezbollah's capabilities would be severely neutered, and they are. I think it was just 10 or 15 minutes after the current Hezbollah commander announced that he was, launching these strikes, he was killed 10 or 15 minutes later. And now we also see the ruling government in Hezbollah, in Lebanon, condemning Hezbollah. So, Hezbollah is not going to be the factor that they were a couple of years ago. Certainly, I'm sure they can fire off, some rockets and do some certain things, but they're not going to be the big threat that they once were.
Okay, Armin, I saw you nodding a little bit over there. Can you just give us what you're thinking? Anything to add to what Brian said?
Well, Brian is exactly right. What Iran's ability to affect events within the Middle East has really seriously been attrited by Israel and by the United States. I think probably the greatest concern would be security here in the homeland. Was Iran able to get sleeper cells in the U.S.? Are they able to affect any cyber attacks within the U.S.? It's only been a couple of days. Is it possible? Certainly. We haven't seen them be able to actually implement that. We've seen them try on a cyber operations a couple of times, not successfully. So that is probably the only axis of attack that Iran has that could really have some kind of impact. But even then, it's not going to be enough. It could be annoyance, it could be a hindrance, but there is really nothing that they can do to stop the United States from taking out these capabilities that the president articulated this morning.
Okay, I just have one final question here. Brian, we know China relies on Iran for oil to a significant degree. How does this impact China? How does that fit into this equation?
Well, yeah, it's so interesting that the Iranians are trying or thinking about shutting down the Strait of Hormuz, because who's going to hurt the most from a situation like that is going to be the Chinese, the CCP. So listen, I think this is a big moment, not just for the Middle East, but for the world at large. You had the Russians and the Chinese over the last year or so that tried to develop this new axis of power when Biden was the president, and they were successful in coming together and doing different deals to help each other. But now I think the CCP is really rethinking a lot of things here. They made a bad bet in trying to back and support the world's leading sponsor of terrorism. And at the end of the day, guys, they're not going to go to war with the U.S. They're not going to go to war with Israel. So, this is a weak moment, not just for the Iranians, but for whoever their allies are, being Russia and China.
Okay, so Armin, Brian brings up the axis of power, which includes China and Iran. With the U.S. Operation Epic Fury now, what do you think it's going to do to that axis of power? Just final thoughts from you.
We took out Maduro, and the president is allowing Venezuela to sell oil to China legally, eliminating the need for oil to be sold by Iran via the black market. So, Venezuela is no longer a player. Syria is out of the picture. They're no longer friendly to the Shia militias in there. Cuba is not doing well right now. And here we are trying to take out Iran. President Trump, you got to give him credit, is changing this world order, this effort to stand up to the United States and basically create an axis against the U.S. Well, Donald Trump has been Alexander's blade to the Gordian knot.
Yeah, I think many would agree with you that President Trump has taken bold actions in his second administration. Well, it's been great speaking to both of you. Armin, Brian, pleasure.
Thank you.
Coming up, House Speaker Mike Johnson planning for a classified briefing between lawmakers and the Trump administration. The House Speaker showing full support for the president's military operations. More news after this break.
Hi, I'm Susan Lucci. You may know me from my many years on television. I never thought about heart disease until I had my own heart event. I felt this slight pressure on my chest, just slight. I thought, oh, it's nothing, it'll go away. I didn't get it. I did not get it. A few days later, while shopping at a boutique, that pressure returned, much stronger. It felt like an elephant pressing on my chest. I had a 90% blockage in my main artery and a 75% blockage in the adjacent artery. I was rushed into surgery where I received 2 stents in my arteries. Stents developed through research funded by the American Heart Association. Those stents saved my life. That's why I'm in front of you today, asking you to join me in supporting the American Heart Association by becoming a monthly donor. Call now or go to helpheart.org. For only $19 a month, just 63 cents a day, you can help fund the next medical breakthrough. Get the next person trained in CPR, the next hospital certified in high-quality cardiovascular care. I'm so grateful to the American Heart Association. Their research helped save my life. I can enjoy life with my children, my grandchildren, and my friends. Heart disease is America's #1 killer, and your support now can help save your life or the life of someone you love. Give $19 a month with your credit card, and we'll send you this special t-shirt that you can wear to show that you are helping save lives. Please, listen to your heart. The only reason I'm here today is because I did.
Please call the number on your screen or go to helpheart.org. Become a monthly donor during February Heart Month, and your first month's gift will be matched.
Thank you.
In 4 days. There was an old woman who lived in a shoe. She had so many children. She didn't know what to do.
Did you have a good day at school?
She gave them some broth without any bread.
There you go.
And kissed them all soundly.
Night night.
Good night. And put them to bed. Hunger is a story we can end. End it at feedingamerica.org.
The Trump administration will be briefing Congress tomorrow about the ongoing strikes in Iran. Here's more.
Secretary of War Pete Hegseth, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, CIA Director John Ratcliffe, and the Chair of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Dan Kane, will address the House and Senate. That's according to Dylan Johnson, Assistant Secretary of State for Global Public Affairs, speaking to The Hill. Johnson told The Hill the Pentagon spoke to the bipartisan staffs of several national security committees in both chambers yesterday. In a post on X on Saturday, House Speaker Mike Johnson said the group of lawmakers commonly known as the Gang of Eight was briefed last week about potential Iran strikes. That group includes the majority and minority leaders of both houses and the chairs and ranking members of the Senate and House Intelligence Committees.
House Speaker Mike Johnson fully backing President Trump's military operations in Iran. He is planning for a briefing between lawmakers and the Trump administration.
I've arranged for a classified briefing for all members of Congress tomorrow at 5 p.m. And we're going to have Secretary Rubio, Secretary Hegseth, the CIA Director Ratcliffe, and Joint Chiefs of Staff Chairman General Raisin Kane. They're all going to brief the House and Senate members, Republican and Democrat, and lots of questions will be asked and answered there in the classified setting. But I think the president has been pretty transparent here.
The House Speaker says he hopes Republicans will be able to defeat a vote on the War Powers Act. He says it would be dangerous to restrict the commander-in-chief from completing the mission. Johnson also says he believes the president is fully within his authority to conduct the current operation. He calls the mission a defensive strike, not a declaration of war. The House Speaker stresses that the Iranian regime has been behind great evil for almost 5 decades, destabilizing the Middle East and undermining U.S. national interests. He also notes he will put back on the House floor another vote to fund the Department of Homeland Security by this Wednesday. The widening conflict in the Middle East is affecting the oil market. Prices are spiking after Iranian attacks disrupted shipping traffic in the Strait of Hormuz. Benchmark U.S. crude rose 5.7% to $70 a barrel. Brent crude jumped 6.2% to $77 per barrel. Nearly 1/5 of the world's oil passes through the Strait of Hormuz between Iran and Oman. Roughly 20 million barrels of oil move through the strait every day, along with 100 billion cubic meters of natural gas. Shipping data shows more than 200 vessels, including oil and liquefied gas tankers, are stalled outside the strait. Strikes in the Gulf region continue. Saudi Arabia's state oil giant Aramco shut down a refinery after it was hit by a drone. Eyewitness video shows heavy smoke billowing from the refinery. The complex is on the kingdom's Gulf Coast. It houses one of the Middle East's largest refineries with a capacity of 550,000 barrels per day. The Saudi Defense Ministry says 2 drones were intercepted at the facility, with debris causing a limited fire. No injuries were reported. And Qatar Energy has stopped liquefied natural gas production following military attacks on its Ras Laffan industrial complex. The company confirming the halt in a statement today. Earlier, Qatar's defense ministry said a drone targeted a water tank at a power plant inside the complex, while another drone struck an energy facility. The Ras Laffan complex is a key hub for Qatar's energy exports. The suspension of operations could have significant implications for global LNG supplies. President Trump says the U.S. operations in Iran is ahead of schedule. We discussed the U.S. military's capabilities with a former U.S. military personnel after this break. Stay tuned.
The bladder control aisle. You won't shop here again. Your private business is your own. The constant struggle is over. Now there's a better way. It's HDIS. We home deliver bladder control products. We understand how you feel. For over 25 years, we've home delivered to many of the 20 million Americans who deal with incontinence. We offer all brands. We pay shipping and use plain, unmarked boxes. If we can help you or someone you care for, call for your free product sample pack and $45 in money-saving coupons. Our counselors will help you choose the right product. And unlike stores, we're always in stock. You'll get what you need. Satisfaction guaranteed. HDIS, the better way.
For your free sample pack with your free catalog, $45 in money-saving coupons, and free product samples, call 1-800-701-6159. That's 1-800-701-6159.
There's cultures that have been lost, but this culture hasn't been. The artist is showing us our sense of who we are, where we came from. You look at his hat. His hat is knitted probably by a man because a man traditionally knitted the hats. That hat tells you the story of who this person is, what his place in the culture is, the animals around him. Everything's all contained in the messages in the hat. And the tool that he's carrying over his shoulder. This is a centuries-old tool that has been able to rework the mountains. Those traditions are invaluable, and if we don't honor those traditions, then we're rootless. The artist is showing us the value of maintaining our culture and respecting our culture.
The Middle East conflict is widening today. Israel says it has completed a broad wave of strikes on Hezbollah targets in Lebanon, while U.S. forces continue major combat operations against Iran. This comes after joint U.S.-Israeli strikes killed Iran's supreme leader, triggering missile retaliation across the region. We now go to NTD's Washington correspondent, Jack Bradley. Jack, so let's begin with Israel's latest military action in Lebanon. What are we learning about these new strikes?
Right, so the Israeli military says that it completed a broad wave of airstrikes targeting Hezbollah infrastructure over in southern Lebanon. That's just north of Israel. Israeli officials say that 70 targets were hit, including weapons facilities and launch sites. Now, this comes after Hezbollah terrorists fired rockets toward northern Israel. Take a look.
Overnight, the IDF carried out retaliatory strikes against several Hezbollah targets in Lebanon, including command and control centers, launch sites, and senior terrorists. We were ready for this. As part of the preparations for our operation in Iran, the IDF prepared for an attack from Hezbollah, allowing us to carry out a swift response.
Now, Iran has targeted Israel and neighboring countries in this war, hitting not just military targets, but civilian infrastructure. Iran firing missiles at airports, hotels, residences in Israel, but also in Dubai and Bahrain and other neighboring countries. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu had visited one of these sites in just west of Jerusalem here, and that was hit by an Iranian missile. Here's what he said at the scene.
When I stand here in a place that was bombarded by the terrorists in Tehran against innocent civilians, you see the difference. The tyrants of Tehran target civilians. We target the tyrants of Tehran to protect civilians. I've said for many years that they threaten not only Israel and not only America. They chant death to Israel, death to America. That's their ultimate target. But I said that they would also target those in between, that they would target Europe.
Now, like Netanyahu said, there is support emerging from Europe, although they may not be contributing to the offensive against Iran. NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte says many European leaders are on board. Watch.
I really commend what is happening here. Taking out Khamenei, taking out the nuclear capability in Iran, but also taking out the ballistic missile program in Iran. This is crucial. And what I see in Europe, I spoke with all the key European leaders over the weekend, is widespread support for what the president is doing.
Meanwhile, the U.S. Embassy in Bahrain just issued a notice saying that there are certain sites in the country that could become targets by Iran. Don.
And Jack, we're seeing an expansion of U.S. involvement in the region. What's the Pentagon saying?
Well, the Pentagon coming out just now saying that 2 days ago there were 11 ships, Iranian ships, in the Gulf of Oman. Today they have 0, with the U.S. striking out all of them. Pentagon officials say that this is one of hundreds of missions that have already been launched under Operation Epic Fury, delivering tens of thousands of explosives. We saw 3 American F-15 fighter jets that were mistakenly shot down by Kuwaiti Air Force defense systems during active combat, though. Kuwaiti forces misidentified these American jets as threats. All 6 crew members ejected safely. At the same time, a 4th service member has been confirmed dead from injuries in Operation Epic Fury, U.S. service member. Officials say that 1 Iranian missile slipped through U.S. air defenses and then struck an operations center. U.S. officials also caution that major combat operations are ongoing and more casualties are possible. Take a look.
This is not a single overnight operation. The military objectives that CENTCOM and the Joint Force have been tasked with will take some time to achieve, and in some cases will be difficult and gritty work. We expect to take additional losses, and as always, we will work to minimize U.S. losses.
General Dan Kane also issuing a stern warning to anyone helping Iran. Here he is.
To those who would test our resolve or threaten the United States, our allies, or our interests, understand clearly we can reach you, we can sustain the fight, and we can scale the fight, and we will prevail.
And then we know that the biggest backer of the Iranian regime has long been the Chinese Communist Party, accounting for half of the Iranian regime's income. That's according to a congressionally appointed U.S.-China Commission up here on Capitol Hill. They reported that in 2024, China bought 90% of Iran's sanctioned oil. Don.
All right, Jack. Thank you. Joining us now to discuss this further is retired Lieutenant Colonel Darren Gobb, geopolitical strategist at former Black Hawk helicopter pilot and battalion commander for the U.S. Army. So good to have you here, Colonel. So President Trump saying Saturday that the Iranian leader could not avoid, quote, U.S. intelligence and highly sophisticated tracking systems. There was not a thing he or the other leaders that have been killed along with him could do. So talk to us about U.S. air power and military intelligence in this war. What is Iran up against?
Iran is up against something that they've never really truly experienced before, which is being massively overmatched by a much superior military force in the United States and in Israel. And by the way, these two reflect to an extent some of the capabilities that reside within NATO in general also. So what matters about all of that is when you start talking about the ability of the United States, along with some of our allies, to build an intelligence picture of a country like Iran. And by the way, that intelligence picture has been built for a very long time. I've worked on stuff in this country quite a long time ago as well, not physically in it, but as far as like operational plans and such. We've mapped the entire country for a very long time. And that goes everything from space-based assets to unmanned assets to other things that are out there and sources on the ground that tell us where things are that Iran probably has no idea that we were already aware of. And the bombing campaign, as it's been developing, makes it very clear that they were trying to hide things in numerous distributed locations they probably didn't think we knew about, but they were high on the list and easily and quickly removed at the beginning of this conflict. So when you marry intelligence, accurate intelligence, to operations and a airborne fleet like we are capable of putting together over top of Iran in working with our allies, this is why you see us achieving air dominance over a 90 million person country in the space of about 36 hours.
You said the U.S. has mapped out the country for a very long time. This is incredible to hear. But Colonel, let me get your comments on something else. So a guest that we often have on the show said F-22 and F-35 stealth fighters, along with 2 aircraft carriers and more land-based fighters, are leading the most sophisticated air campaign ever launched by U.S. forces. And she also said the #1 metric for success is the destruction of Iran's military power. Do you also see it this way?
Absolutely. And I would add in the Aegis destroyer systems in the that are with those aircraft carrier battle groups. This is the true test of billions of American dollars and hours of technology, experimentation, and many other things, and proving the case that much of it has been well spent for the sake of our military and its dominance on the battlefield. That those statements that you mentioned, I believe, are 100% true and will continue to be proven out over time, because those are just the things that are publicly available, publicly visible. And there are many other assets that are not necessarily so much like that. But all of this coming together so well choreographed is why we're sitting here watching a conflict in Iran and going and should be amazed at how successful we have been as a whole.
Yeah, I am amazed. So, Colonel, there's one question that perhaps is looming over this, a rather important question. It's whether troops will be on the ground in Iran. So based on the goals laid out by Secretary of War Pete Hegseth, do you think there will be a need for U.S. troops in Iran?
I don't think so, and I don't think the American people would support that either. We've tried that before in nations like Afghanistan and Iraq, and we know that nation building is not something we need to or should get involved in. That doesn't mean that we don't have ways to help the Iranian people build their own nation and make sure that they own their country and the solutions that can make it what it is capable of being, peaceful and prosperous, whether that be some form of democracy or a government that works for them, but at least isn't a belligerent and spreading terrorism everywhere. That's critical. And how that plays out right now will be determined by the response of the IRGC and the Quds Force, and whether they can coalesce together and actually fight back against their population should they be able to do so. And the population then becomes much more challenged in trying to take their country back. But we can't solve this with boots on the ground in Iran. That would gain us absolutely nothing.
Okay, so you said earlier this is something Iran has never faced before. How long do you think Iran can sustain this war, militarily speaking? Trump says the operation could take around 4 weeks.
Well, I would give that a graded scale. So how long can they sustain this in an effective manner that actually threatens their neighboring states and has a chance of actually achieving some minor level of victory in here? I would say you're going to know the answer to that within the next 7 to 10 days. And that's when the bombing campaign will have changed already, more than likely, or could be very soon to, which is we strike targets as they reveal themselves rather than hit a pre-planned list of targets that we've known about for years. And that'll be the difference. I think what you're going to see is 4 to 6 weeks from now, you're going to have a really solid answer of what the military campaign looks like, and you can consider it a military victory. The question then becomes, can we win the peace, which in many cases is a much harder thing to do, because now you're dealing with who do you put in Iran and how do you establish a semblance of governance that works for the people there and keeps them from reverting back to where they came from in the first place. That'll be the greatest challenge of all after a military victory is achieved, which I assume at this point is more than likely.
Okay, I want to follow up on one thing you said just now, that Iran has attacked surrounding areas. So how effective have U.S. bases' defense systems been against Iranian missiles and attacks?
Highly effective, and that is a wonderful thing. And that, by the way, that also includes those systems based in other countries like Jordan. We've had allies that are helping with this, and then you add in those carrier strike groups with the Aegis destroyers and all the defensive systems those ships come with. You've got a very layered defense system across where they are, and of course, what Israel has proven to be effective for a very long time, and what's new and really demonstrating its value is now the Iron Beam laser system that's knocking missiles out of the sky up in northern Israel that Hezbollah is launching. So our ships, our bases, and the systems that we have are highly effective. Nothing is perfect, but if they hadn't been effective, this could have gone a lot worse for the Gulf nations and American bases.
Okay, that's good to hear. Colonel, just one final question here. Is there a wild card or that you're watching right now, if any, in this situation?
I would say two wild cards, and the first one I think is a long shot and very unlikely, and that is if somehow Iran was able to develop nuclear capacity without our knowledge. I give that an extremely low percentage, but you have to account for things like that just in case. Second one would be the wild card being, what do the Iranian people do? You have to have momentum when it comes to civilian uprisings against dictators who have a significant sized army and about a 10,000 person core group that works against them. So the first one, be aware of. I wouldn't worry about it. I think it's low chances. The second one, we're all going to be watching that because that's going to be how the tide could really turn and show what Iran can be.
All right, Colonel, it's really good to hear your analysis today. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Tom.
Insurance companies are canceling war risk coverage for vessels in the Gulf as the widening Iran conflict disrupted shipping, leaving at least 4 tankers damaged, 2 seafarers killed, and 150 ships stranded around the Strait of Hormuz. Here's more on that.
Shipping in the Gulf has been disrupted as the widening Iran conflict has left at least 4 tankers damaged, 2 seafarers killed, and 150 ships stranded around the Strait of Hormuz. The strait between Iran and Oman carries around 1/5 of oil consumed globally, as well as large quantities of gas. Vessels in the area were hit as Iran retaliated to U.S. and Israeli strikes. Fears of a prolonged closure have caused oil and European natural gas prices to jump. Brent crude futures were up more than 8% as the conflict triggered multiple oil and gas shutdowns in the Middle East. Shipping data showed at least 150 vessels had dropped anchor in the strait and surrounding waters on Sunday. Iran has said it closed navigation through the critical waterway, prompting key buyers such as Asian governments and refiners to assess oil stockpiles. A U.S.-flagged product tanker was damaged by aerial impacts while berthed in the Gulf, the vessel's owner said in a statement. A projectile also hit a Marshall Islands-flagged product tanker, killing a crew member as the vessel sailed off the coast of Oman, its manager said. As a result, marine insurers are canceling war risk coverage for Iranian, the Gulf, and adjacent waters, according to notices. Ship owners are also deterred from sending vessels to the region, sources and analysts said. Meanwhile, the market will need more ships to load crude from the U.S. and West Africa, a source from a shipping company said.
Tears of joy and relief as Iranians around the world celebrate the death of regime leader Ali Khamenei. The celebrations erupted in major cities in the U.S., Canada, and Europe. Let's take a look.
A moment many Iranians have been waiting for decades. Celebrations taking over the streets of Los Angeles following U.S. and Israeli airstrikes on Iran on Saturday.
We've been up the whole night following the news. It's just a liberation. We don't look at it as an attack. It's just like World War II when they liberated the countries in Europe. And we are happy that the people of Iran are finally being liberated.
Many are thanking President Trump directly.
I just want to say thank you, Donald Trump. You're a man of your word. You released 90 million hostages. They were hostage for 47 years. Thank you, Donald Trump. Thank you, Bibi.
Some attendees say the strikes are the only option left because the people inside of Iran had no other choice to achieve freedom.
My reaction to this attack is excitement and hope for the Iranian people for freedom and democracy in Iran. As you can see, the atmosphere is almost like a party of people being really excited. For the last 3-4 months, we've been demonstrating almost on a weekly basis for what has been happening in the atrocities inside of Iran, really the genocide against the Iranian people. And so we're excited that we may finally have an opportunity to overthrow the Iranian regime and get to a democratic country.
This rally in Toronto, Canada drew over 40,000 people.
very happy. I'm so happy. You can see all my people, what they do, how they scream, how they dancing today, how they happy, and I'm so happy emotionally from my bottom of heart. I'm so happy today for all of people.
Many of the Iranian diaspora say they are proud of the Iranian people inside Iran who stood up for freedom despite grave risks.
We're very, very, very hopeful and joyful and excited for a free Iran. It's kind of an unbelievable feeling. We're kind of in shock, and then we realize that it's actually happening. You know, it's been 47 years of torture and pain for our people and people Iranian outside of Iran.
In Berlin, Germany, thousands of celebrating Iranians marched past the U.S. Embassy in support of Trump's decision to launch the airstrikes.
Incredible. People are infinitely happy. It's not like they're saying our country has been attacked. Maybe 80%, over 80% of people are happy that they will one day be free again.
The joy continues into Sunday as more celebrations pop up across Europe in front of the Iranian embassy in London, on the streets of Paris, and in Brussels.
U.S. Central Command just announced that all 11 ships of the Iranian regime in the Gulf of Oman have been taken out as shipping companies begin diverting vessels away from Middle East. Some operators are choosing to go around the Cape of Good Hope in South America. More news after this break. Don't go away.
Whispered across generations, a hidden secret unveils the essence of longevity and vitality, a timeless legend regarding energy and wonder. Rooted in ancient health wisdom, we proudly introduce Pure Tang Black Ginseng, a 100% natural organic energy drink made from premium 6-year-old Korean ginseng. It takes 2,260 days and nights from seed to growth, undergoing a meticulous 9-step process of steaming and drying. Black ginseng reaches its full potency, enriched with ginsenoside RG3 and enhanced absorption efficiency. No sugar, no caffeine, no artificial ingredients. Experience the pure natural power of Pure Tang Black Ginseng. Nourish your body, strengthen your immunity, and boost your energy. To order Pure Tang Black Ginseng, please visit puretang.com.
Getting prescription glasses from Select Specs is easier than you might think. Select your frames from our £6 range in-house brands or our extensive designer collections. Then enter, upload or email your latest prescription and our website will analyse it and help you select the best lenses and options to suit you. Click to place the order and your new Select Specs glasses are delivered right to your door. Ordering your prescription glasses is as easy as 1, 2, C with Select Specs and selectspecs.com.
There's a whirlwind of emotion and activity going on in this painting. And there's chaos all around and threat from below. The wolves surrounding her, and they're anything but unmoved. They're moving all the time, and we sense that. But this little girl remains unmoved.
She's in quite a perilous situation, but she's completely strong and serene, and she's actually meditating. It was very, very well liked because no matter what culture or what sort of walk of life you're from, I think people, they see it and they immediately understand what that energy, what that message is, and they're drawn to it because everybody kind of needs a little bit of that in their own life, of, you know, the steadfast calmness and something to hold on to. It's definitely an inner peace in the midst of something very chaotic, and for a lot of people right now, the whole world is very, very chaotic. So I guess that's another reason why so many people are very drawn to this.